Good evening and welcome to this virtual presentation of the National Chavez Center's 19th Annual Cesar Chavez Legacy Awards. I am your host, Giovanna Lara, and I am thrilled to be here tonight as we honor 4 individuals who embody Cesar Chavez's legacy of service. Cesar Chavez is, of course, best known for his heroic struggle improving farm worker lives through the United Farm Workers, which he led for 31 years. But when Cesar and the other early organizers began building what became the UFW in 1962, they knew workers weren't just workers. After leaving abuses in the fields, they returned each day to an array of other crippling dilemmas in their home communities. Stifling poverty, substandard housing, poor educational opportunities for their kids, real discrimination because of ethnicity and language. Cesar and his colleagues believed it would take more than a union to overcome those dilemmas. It would take a movement. So during the 1960s, the same people who started the UFW also began an organization to address dilemmas in the community through what today is the Cesar Chavez Foundation. It concentrates on affordable housing, educational radio, and educational tutoring. Another of its missions is educating people about and preserving Cesar Chavez's legacy of service through the National Chavez Center. The National Chavez Center engages in many educational and commemorative endeavors across the nation that preserve and promote the legacy of Cesar Chavez. It also manages historic properties at the 40 acres near Delano and at the National Chavez Center on 187 acres where Cesar lived and labored his last quarter century and where he is buried in Keene, California, in the Tehachapi Mountains southeast of Bakersfield. On part of those grounds, the National Chavez Center partners with the National Park Service in administering the Cesar E. Chavez National Monument, the 398th unit of the Park Service. Part of keeping the legacy alive is this annual gala held to honor people whose present-day lives of service reflect the life and values of Cesar Chavez. So, welcome to this year's presentation of the Cesar Chavez Legacy Awards to remind ourselves about Cesar's enduring legacy of service and to commend the 4 worthy individuals who are being recognized. Now I am privileged to introduce someone who has spent his entire life with the movement, Cesar Chavez's son, the president of the Cesar Chavez Foundation and chairman of the board of the National Chavez Center, Paul Chavez, who joins us from the National Chavez Center in Keene, California.
On behalf of my brothers and sisters, the board of directors and the staff of the foundation and the National Chavez Center, bienvenidos and welcome. And thank you for joining us at this 19th annual Cesar Chavez Legacy Awards virtual gala and for supporting the ongoing work of preserving my father's legacy. I'm joining you from the grounds of the National Chavez Center. This is where my father lived and labored for nearly the last 25 years of his life and where he and my mother chose to be buried. Over the decades, thousands of farm workers, staff, and supporters flowed through here to plan, train, and do the work of the movement. But it was more than that. It was a spiritual harbor for my father. His life was filled with much conflict and strife. This place was a refuge from those tough struggles in the fields and the cities. President Obama traveled here in 2012 to dedicate a portion of the grounds as the Cesar Chavez National Monument, the 398th unit of the National Park Service, and the first recognizing a contemporary Latino figure. Much of what drew my father to this place was that it gave him an opportunity to build a community around the principles that he cherished: nonviolence, self-sacrifice, being of service to others. Each of the 4 honorees at this year's gala reflect my father's enduring legacy of service. U.S. Representative Raul Grijalva's career faithfully mirrors the tradition of Cesar Chavez. Raul began his long legacy of committed service like my father did, as a community organizer and then as a member of Congress representing Arizona, including my father's birthplace since 2003. He has passionately dedicated himself to empowering the underrepresented. Today, he embraces immigrant farm workers by authorizing national legislation to prevent needless death and illness from extreme heat, and by his support for the Farm Workforce Modernization Act to free farm workers and their families and offering them a path to citizenship. Never forgetting that he was born and raised to an Imperial Valley farm worker family, Jose Padilla's long career has been about giving back to the community by creating the gold standard for fearless legal advocacy for farm workers and others who suffer. As a veteran executive director of the California Rural Legal Assistance, Jose has inspired generations to a legacy of service, and no one has fought harder or longer for the legal rights and freedoms of the most abused and exploited in our midst than Jose Padilla. He's internationally recognized as a giant and innovative force in mariachi music. Jose Hernandez is a master of his craft and a 4-time Grammy Award nominee. He's worked tirelessly to elevate the perception of mariachi music by advancing the art to new heights. In addition, Jose Hernandez has inspired and empowered future generations of mariachis through the nonprofit Mariachi Heritage Society that he founded. It has equipped thousands of young people with instruments and offers scholarships to the nation's top student mariachi ensembles. My father's activism began with the social justice teachings of the Catholic Church, first learned from his parish priest, Father McDonald, in the early 50s in the east side San Jose barrio of Sal Si Puedes. Instilling that same dedication to justice and service by educating young men and women has been the selfless mission of Sister Kathleen Callaway, who has been an educator and school administrator for more than 5 decades. She served as president of Ramona Convent Secondary School for the past 21 years. Under Sister Kathleen, Ramona graduates are empowered, resilient, and socially conscious young women prepared to be advocates and thrive in the 21st century. All of our honorees, each in their own way, fulfill my father's legacy in their daily lives. So thank you for joining us in recognizing and honoring our recipients, and for sharing with us this vision of a legacy of service, and for helping us carry on our work.
Thank you, Paul. Our first presenter this evening is Juan Rivera. His career as a musician and producer spans more than 22 years. He has recorded and produced over 20 albums, including those of his late sister, Jenny Rivera, one of the most influential female artists in regional Mexican music. His lifelong values, hard work, humility, faith, and commitment to his community have been the foundation for all of his accomplishments. Juan has served as president of the Jenny Rivera Love Foundation, an organization named for his late sister that was founded to provide aid to victims of domestic violence. He has also helped individuals impacted by last year's Oaxaca earthquake rebuild their lives. He's joining us to honor the mariachi master, Jose Hernandez. Please welcome Juan Rivera.
Hey everybody, my name is Juan Rivera, and it's an honor for me to introduce to you Jose Hernandez, an internationally renowned, Grammy-nominated musician, composer, and educator. He is a 5th-generation mariachi who has formed 2 worldwide known ensembles, el Mariachi Sol de Mexico and La Reina de Los Ángeles. La Reina de Los Ángeles being the first professional all-female mariachi, and he produced and arranged 15 albums for El Sol de Mexico. Jose has inspired and empowered new generations of musicians throughout his educational initiatives. One of these being the nonprofit Mariachi Heritage Society and the Mariachi Nationals and Summer Institute. Mr. Jose Hernandez, thank you for all the work you have done for our culture, for our tradition, for our music. It is a great honor for me to be able to introduce you and all the great works you have created for our music. Thank you.
Buenas noches a todos. I'm Jose Hernandez, Director of Mariachi Sol de Mexico. It's truly an honor to be this year's recipient of the Cesar Chavez Legacy Award. Thank you so much. I've been playing mariachi music for, I would assume, over 55 years now. And I started my group, Mariachi Sol de Mexico, in 1981. And in 1987 and 88, we've had the privilege to play for Cesar himself at the ranch. He's done great things. Things have been done beautifully by the Cesar Chavez Foundation, helping education, the people that are most vulnerable also, in our communities. Thank you to them. Thank you to the board of directors. I also want to thank all my musicians who helped me teach a lot of children mariachi music throughout the country. It's truly an honor to be here and to accept the award. Thank you.
As you can see, it is not just Juan Rivera that recognizes Jose Hernandez's work. One of the greatest mariachi bands of all time will join us as well, El Mariachi Vargas.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Palomar. I'm part of Mariachi Vargas de Tecalitlán. Sí, señor! And we want to congratulate El Maestro Jose Hernandez on his achievement of the Cesar Chavez Legacy Award for his continuous breaking boundaries in the world of mariachi music as a composer and as a mariachi educator. Felicidades, maestro. Felicidades!
Congratulations, Jose. We'd like to take a moment to thank tonight's diamond sponsor, Epic Insurance Services, along with all of our other sponsors who have made tonight's Cesar Chavez Legacy Awards possible. Our next presenter is Roberto de la Rosa. His personal history parallels the story of the man for whom the Chavez Foundation is named. Roberto immigrated from Mexico to South Texas at the age of 5 to follow the migrant trails as a field worker during the 1950s. He settled in California in 1960, continuing in farm labor while pursuing his education. A keen interest in community activism opened his eyes to the world. Roberto de la Rosa is a seasoned veteran of the Chicano and civil rights movements whose pastimes have included voter registration and community politics. As executive director of the Organization for the Legal Advancement of Raza Incorporated over the last 25 years, Roberto has helped supply relevant community services for tens of thousands of students, immigrants, and poor people. Please welcome a longtime member of the Cesar Chavez Foundation Board of Directors, Roberto de la Rosa, who is here to honor his friend Jose Padilla.
Serving on the California Rural Legal Assistance Board of Directors, known as CRLA, for over 30 years allowed me to know and work with our compañero, Jose Padilla, quite extensively. I can testify about how Jose Padilla has put the heart and soul of a lifetime into CRLA's mission of defending the legal rights of the poorest, the most abused, and the most deprived people in our society. Jose Padilla helped build and grow CRLA as a defender of people with limited education and with few, if any, resources. I have witnessed CRLA under Jose's leadership advocating for farm workers who had been forced to live in caves in northern San Diego County, and CRLA has represented farm workers made to work essentially as indentured servants. Under Jose Padilla's leadership, CRLA has taken on the rich and powerful, such as when CRLA sued the University of California on behalf of farm workers whose livelihoods were wiped out by mechanization research at UC Davis. Since the 1970s, I have known a Jose Padilla who has been inclined towards poetry and spirituality. At the same time, Jose has tirelessly devoted himself to the pursuit of justice over his long professional career. Jose Padilla's devotion reminds me of how Cesar Chavez distinguished between people who are of service and those who are true servants. Cesar Chavez would say, many decent people commit daily acts of kindness or charity or idealism, but a relatively few become servants by dedicating their entire lives to the cause of the most needy in our society. By definition, Jose Padilla is a true servant. I cannot think of anyone who who's more deserving of a legacy award named for Cesar Chavez than José Padilla. José Padilla, con cariño y con respeto.
As I prepared these few comments to inspire me, I was viewing a photo of my father with his arm around Cesar, undated, both in Guayaberas, in front of a music stage. It was taken in Brawley at the meeting hall of the American Citizens Club. For me, thinking of Cesar and this honor brought back many personal family stories that intertwined with the Chavez family when they lived in Imperial County. In one of the books on his life, Cesar is quoted as saying, "At some point along the way, I took it personal. It is only that you take your personal sense of injustice and you convert it into social service. So I have made this a personal acceptance." Personal to family, Cesar knew it was first about family. Whenever I met with him, he would always ask me about family before we would talk business. The family narrative said that the Padilla and the Chavez families had even migrated together al norte in the 30s and the 40s. But Cesar also knew my aunts, and they remembered that Cesar and Richard had attended grade school with two of them. And Cesar never failed to ask me how my tia Socorro, how my tia Teresa were doing, their Escuela Hidalgo schoolmates. Personal to me, I begin with a cherished memory of having lunch with Cesar and Helen in La Paz, when Cesar invited me to break bread with them and to express the need to have CRLA provide legal services to farm worker members of the UFW, which we still do daily these many years later. Also personal to me, it was my college involvement with the UFW movement, standing on the picket lines in Coachella in front of Teamster goons in 1973 when I realized that farm workers needed to have attorneys defend their legal rights. That very insight led to this blessing and this award of being able to serve working families in poverty the more than 40 years of my legal career. It was that movement work that led me to CRLA because it was very clear that when my grandparents and my father were toiling in that hot sun, piscando uva en la tapiada or desahijando, they suffered it without any recourse to the law when their wages went unpaid, or they had to pay under the table to get the job, or worse, suffered the indignity of being raped. My own aunt had no recourse when she had been raped in a labor camp in the Central Valley. So I end noting that this work is also about the worker who has the courage to say, ya basta. In the book, The Gospel of Cesar Chavez, Cesar is quoted speaking to the notion of human dignity, that he understood its importance to unionizing when he said, "It really doesn't matter in the final analysis how powerful we are, how many boycotts we win, if in the process we forget whom we are serving. We must never forget that the human element is the most important thing we have." So I end with the human element. For CRLA, this means that our legacy was never about the lawyering, but rather it was due to the courage of the worker who, because of the injustices to them, walked into a CRLA office and asked to be defended. Without that courageous client, CRLA could never, our work could never happen. Without a Blanca Alfaro, CRLA could never have brought its first sexual harassment case 20 years ago when she came to the Salinas office to get help, collecting her 2 weeks of unpaid wages with Tanamura and Antle. Instead of the $600 owed, CRLA settled her case for $1.8 million to compensate the whole cuadrilla of women similarly abused. Without a Sebastian Carmona, Cesar could not have eliminated the cortito, the short hoe, from the picking fields. The medical evidence showed that because of the devil's hoe, el asadón del diablo, 30-year-old workers had the backs of 70-year-old men. And without the young student, Diana, and her abuelita, who brought her to the Cesar Salinas office because the normal child spent her school day playing with puzzles. The child had been given an IQ test in English, and the score indicated the child was mentally challenged, when the real problem was that the child didn't understand English. So in ending, I humbly accept this honor on behalf of our clients, my staff, our parents, mine and Deborah's, their influence, both her father, Alberto Escobedo, and mine, Joe Padilla, both union men, taught us the importance of supporting unions and worker rights. Lessons that took us both to law school and to our public interest careers. Gracias, Paul, Roberto, and the Chavez Foundation for this humbling honor. And as we would chant back in the day, viva la causa, viva la unión, and viva Cesar Chavez. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jose. The National Chavez Center is one part of the Cesar Chavez Foundation, whose mission is to carry on Cesar's legacy and life's work of uplifting the lives of Latinos and working families. Let's take a look at the work of the Cesar Chavez Foundation and the National Chavez Center.
The year was 1962. On March 31st, the same day as his birthday, Cesar Chavez resigned from a civil rights group called the Community Service Organization and moved his family to Delano, California. There, he began building the United Farm Workers, launching a movement that paved the way for today's Cesar Chavez Foundation. Cesar's vision was simple: a workers' union that would help people overcome their burdens of poverty, discrimination, and powerlessness they suffered at their work and in their communities. That's why Cesar and his colleagues established the first credit union for farm workers, a death benefit program to help workers with funeral and burial expenses, and a co-op gas station to ease the burden of daily transportation. During the 1960s, he founded an organization to support families by building affordable housing, providing educational services, and creating a network of educational radio stations. That organization would become the Cesar Chavez Foundation, continuing his legacy of social change by improving the quality of life for millions of people. Through housing and economic development, the Cesar Chavez Foundation provides high-quality, affordable housing for thousands of working families and seniors across California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. These communities create lasting and transformational change across generations. In 1983, Cesar founded Radio Campesina, a radio station dedicated to educating and entertaining listeners. It has grown to become a multi-platform communications group, reaching more than 1 million people through informative and entertaining content that promotes community action. Cesar envisioned an educational system in which all students can thrive and engage with their communities. The Cesar Chavez Foundation is dedicated to transforming education so that all children can experience high-quality learning to reach their full potential. Cesar's work continues in Keene, California, on the grounds where he labored and lived during the last half of his life. It is home to the National Chavez Center, which preserves and promotes his legacy. The Via La Paz Conference and Event Center fulfills his dream of a place where people can gather and educate future generations of dedicated activists. The property is also home to the Cesar E. Chavez National Monument, the final resting place of Cesar and his wife Helen. Cesar's struggle began as a fight for social justice that grew beyond the fields to include the modern-day struggles and needs of people everywhere. The Cesar Chavez Foundation carries on Cesar's vision by uplifting the lives of Latinos and working families, inspiring and transforming communities.
Once social change begins, it cannot be reversed. You cannot uneducate the person who has learned to read. You cannot humiliate the person who feels pride. You cannot oppress the people who are not afraid anymore.
Thank you for joining us tonight for the 19th Annual Cesar Chavez Legacy Awards Virtual Gala. With your support, the National Chavez Center is able to continue its mission of preserving and promoting the legacy of Cesar Chavez. On behalf of the Cesar Chavez Foundation and the National Chavez Center, we thank you for your continued support. Please enjoy the rest of this evening's show.
Thank you, Manuel. To learn more about the work of the Cesar Chavez Foundation and National Chavez Center, please visit the website at chavezfoundation.org and follow them on social media. If you'd like to help the National Chavez Center further its work of preserving and promoting Cesar's legacy, you can find ways to donate at the bottom of your screen. To introduce our next honoree is Sister Daleen Larkin, Theology Department Chair and Theology Teacher at Ramona Convent Secondary School. Sister Larkin is a member of the Sisters of the Holy Names of Jesus and Mary. She has been an elementary school teacher, director of religious education, and principal, and was the commissioner of the accredited Catholic Elementary Schools Department for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Like our next honoree, she is committed to social justice and to connecting social justice into the learning process at Ramona School. Sister Larkin is here to honor her colleague, Sister Kathleen Callaway. Please welcome Sister Daleen Larkin.
I am happy to introduce to you Sister Kathleen Callaway, the recipient of the Cesar Chavez Legacy Award. Sister Kathleen, currently president of Ramona Convent Secondary School in Alhambra, grew up in the Oakland area and attended schools conducted by the Sisters of the Holy Names of Jesus and Mary. Two core values of the sisters are dedication to justice and the full development of the human person. These values spoke to Sister's heart, and she discerned a vocation to the Sisters of the Holy Names and became a member. Her ministry career has been in formal education. Sister Kathleen has served as principal of St. Anthony's School in San Gabriel and as president of Ramona Convent in Alhambra. Sister Kathleen first came to Ramona Convent in 1967, working with the junior students. In 2000, she returned to Ramona Convent as president. She is an advocate for the right to a quality education, especially for young women, that is founded in an environment of faith and values. In her role as president, Sister Kathleen seeks relationships with donors, alumni, and foundations for scholarships so that a family's economic status is not a deterrent to a Ramona education. She supports and participates in the Ramona Social Justice Program, projects, and service opportunities. She is an active member of the Alhambra Chamber of Commerce and the Alhambra Rotary. Sister Kathleen has been a leader in the San Gabriel Pastoral Region of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, serving on the Pastoral Council and on committees. Cesar Chavez inspires others to lead a life of service. Sister Kathleen has certainly done this in her years of educational ministry. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Sister Kathleen Callaway.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for this virtual event honoring the legacy of Cesar Chavez. Though the pandemic has taught us we can stage almost anything virtually, I'm sure most of us would rather be here in person, socializing and gathering with our colleagues and friends. As I look at the list of past honorees, as well as those joining me tonight, I am at once honored and humbled. I must admit my first reaction when I got the phone call was, why me? I am deeply moved by this nomination, and I hope my work lives up to the recognition. Before I go any further, I would like to congratulate my fellow honorees, Raul Grijalva, Jose Hernandez, and Jose Padilla, and thank them for their unique contributions to their work and their commitment to social justice. I'm speaking to you from Ramona Convent Secondary School in Alhambra, where I have spent most of my professional life. For those of you who may not be familiar with Ramona, it is a 131-year-old Catholic all-girls school sponsored by the Sisters of the Holy Names and founded in 1889. Our mission at Ramona is to graduate empowered, resilient, and socially conscious young women. Cesar Chavez once said that the end of education is to be of service to others. This definitely resonates with our work here at Ramona. Our student population is primarily Latina, 71% to be exact. 63% of them are able to be at Ramona thanks to tuition assistance provided by donations from friends, alumni, and foundations. We are proud of our 100% graduation rate and the fact that 100% of our graduates continue on to post-secondary education. Each year of the recent few, an average of 35% of the graduates are the first in their families to attend college. The educational program at Ramona is imbued with the key values of the Sisters of the Holy Names: the full development of the human person, dedication to justice, service to the poor and marginalized, and commitment to liberating action and hospitality. 50-plus years ago, the girls were passionate about educating each other and their families about the plight of the farm workers in the Central Valley, especially the need to boycott table grapes. Perish the thought that anyone would dare bring grapes to school in her lunch bag. They participated in various rallies and public programs to raise awareness of the issue here in the Los Angeles area. Now fast forward to today's young women, whom we find equally passionate about social justice and concern for the environment. We recycle. We do not have plastic water bottles on campus. The girls use reusable water canteens. And the girls can be found at beaches, parks, and neighborhood cleanup days. The horrible evil of human trafficking also claims their attention as they educate themselves, bring speakers on campus, and participate annually in the LA Freedom Walk. Most recently, our students, faculty, and staff have advocated for immigrants and refugees and found various ways to stand in solidarity with them. Many of our families found themselves in the position of today's immigrants. Undertaking the education of these outstanding young women would not be possible without the commitment of the 415 Sisters of the Holy Names who have ministered at Ramona over the past 131 years, as well as the hundreds of laymen and women who have shared in our ministry, including today's dedicated faculty and staff members. And it is in their name that I accept this honor. Thank you.
Congratulations, Sister Callaway. To introduce our next honoree, we welcome U.S. Representative Jesus Chuy Garcia of Illinois. Before becoming an influential progressive voice in Congress, Garcia, while still in college, joined farm worker picket lines supporting the Great Boycott in Chicago. Congressman Garcia was a community organizer before becoming the first Latino alderman in Chicago history. Community activism kick-started his political career and forms his political base. He credits his start in politics in part to the late Marcos Munoz, former Delano grape striker and key organizer of the 60s and 70s grape boycotts who settled in Chicago. Congressman Garcia has long championed the political coalition of Black and brown neighborhoods that transformed Chicago politics to this day. Please welcome Congressman Garcia to honor his colleague, Congressman Raul Grijalva.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia, representing the 4th Congressional District of Illinois. It's a great honor to say a few words about my dear friend and colleague, Raul Grijalva, who's being honored with the Cesar Chavez Legacy Award tonight. We know him as a tireless fighter for workers and underrepresented voices in Congress. But Raul was a labor and education champion long before arriving in D.C. As a community organizing in Tucson, Raul advocated for labor and civil rights, as well as funding for public and bilingual education. Serving on the Tucson Unified School District Governing Board from 1974 to 86, 6 years as chairman, and later as the Pima County Board of Supervisors, where he was chair for 2 years. Raul had an outstanding decade-long experience fighting for equal representation and better opportunities for Latinos, and when he was elected to Congress in 2003. So naturally, a man with his track record and his thick mustache, a feature that particularly resonates with me, arriving on Capitol Hill was to be feared by the powers that be, and a man I've seen witness of that. In addition to serving with him in the Hispanic and Progressive caucuses, I'm fortunate enough to cause good trouble alongside him in the Natural Resources Committee. As the chair of this group, Raul has prioritized important intersectionality of environment protection and underrepresented communities, a champion of tribal sovereignty and the defense of endangered species, the wilderness, national parks, and public lands. Raul is the kind of leader we need to address the urgent environmental needs we currently face as a country. I'm also thankful for his wise direction in matters related to environmental justice and our sisters and brothers in Puerto Rico. His passion for helping uplift historically marginalized communities is powerfully manifested at every hearing and at every meeting we hold accountable those benefiting from the exploitation of the island and its natural resources. The Cesar Chavez Legacy Award symbolizes the long and selfless fight for the rights of farm workers and every worker facing discrimination. It is a recognition of someone's well-proven commitment to social justice and labor rights advocacy. I can't imagine someone more deserving of this award than my compañero, Raul Grijalva. In him, labor unions like the United Farm Workers and anyone trying to do better by Latinos, indigenous people, essential employees, and farm workers can find an ally. I know this firsthand. Under his leadership, progressives will continue fighting for bills such as the Fairness for Farm Workers Act and other measures to advance the labor cause. La Causa. I look forward to our continued partnership advocating for all workers in the United States and to soon make the Mustache Caucus, a long dream of ours, a reality. Muchas felicidades por este reconocimiento, amigo. Te lo mereces. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Raul Grijalva.
Well, thank you very much to the Cesar Chavez Legacy Foundation, to the foundation itself, and for this Legacy Award. It is indeed an honor. And I also want to thank my good and dear friend, Representative Jesus Garcia. Chuy is a dear friend and a voice and a person that you can depend on in Congress for leadership on the issues important to all of us, and also a very strong voice for our community and for good, solid laws and policies that will take our community into a future. He's a good man, and I know we're all going to rely more and more on his leadership and his voice in Congress. And thank you, Chuy, for the introduction. It's an honor for me, even for a moment, for a brief moment, to share an award that carries Cesar Chavez's name, the Legacy Award, and to be in the company of my 3 co-recipients of this Legacy Award. They represent the empowerment and the emergence of our community in some very significant and diverse areas. The arts, lending voice, color, texture to our culture, and bringing it more and more into the mainstream of our national life, and to the artists and to the musicians, the painters, the writers, all the artists. They've been at the forefront and a force. To those that have consistently fought for equal treatment under the law, equal protection under the law, to their ongoing and continuing fight, thank you very much for assuring that we can continue to strive to be full partners in this democracy of ours, and that we all fall under the rule of law with the same treatment and the same approach. And to those that build community with compassion and with social justice, thank you for the example. Sometimes legacy means the end of something. It connotes an end, and I would argue that Cesar Chavez legacy belies that description. Cesar is a living legacy. What he represented, the values he stood for, are a living legacy that we have all inherited. And he brought into our political life and to our civic life, he stirred a community, he stirred a nation, and he stirred our conscience. Those values are very powerful. And he did it guided by some very, very practical and important principles that I hope many of us have tried to emulate, but few have actually succeeded at it. That he had an unwavering commitment to equality and the equal treatment and dignity and respect for all people. He had an unwavering loyalty to the fact that all human life is important and that merited the opportunity to do as much possible with that life. And he was committed to social justice, and in doing so, moved our community. That Black Eagle left the fields, helped organize the farm workers, the most oppressed and underrepresented group of workers in this country, and brought that issue to the conscience of all of us. But beyond that, that Black Eagle went into the streets, the homes, and the neighborhoods across cities and towns in this nation, and fundamentally changed the community. I want to say that this award means a great deal to me. It is something I share with the people that I work with my family, and with the community that I come from. Rooted in values that tell us that systemic inequality and racism has to be defeated, and that the extremism and the attacks that we see on our community, the racism that we see growing, are things that need to be not just addressed, but actively and proactively fought against. That is not our country, that is not us, and that is not what we want. And Cesar's Leaving Legacy demands that we do that. The other thing that this legacy demands of us is that we understand that we have a shared responsibility as a community to invest in our future, to invest in the children and the generations coming up. Because that legacy of progress, that legacy of change, that legacy of equity and equality are living legacies, and each generation inherits a responsibility to carry it forward. So when I say that I am honored to, for a moment, share an award that has Cesar's name on it, I sincerely mean that. Because if anything that is brought to our politics and our life in this country, it's a sense of equity, a sense of pride, and a deep belief that the future we see ahead of us has to be better and will be better. Because as Cesar said, if you want change, you gotta work for it. If you want better, you gotta work for it. And so we bring you that legacy, hard work, but beyond hard work, doing the work with value and conscience. That's what Cesar left us. That's what Cesar continues to insist that we keep alive. And that is why I'm so honored to share this moment with you, to share this legacy, and to know that in some small way, in one tiny fraction, I did my part, and all of you have done your part. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Congressman Grijalva. Now, we want to thank all of this evening's presenters and our youth mariachis who performed during the red carpet show. Congratulations to all of our honorees who carry on Cesar Chavez's legacy through their commitment to community and advocacy. We encourage all of you to further Cesar's legacy of service by helping make a difference in your communities. Thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for supporting the work of the Cesar Chavez Foundation. We look forward to seeing you at next year's Cesar Chavez Legacy Awards Gala. And to end this evening's show, a video from the forthcoming documentary from musician Abel Sanchez, A Song for Cesar, about the life and legacy of Cesar Chavez, told through musicians and artists who supported his work and the farm worker movement. Good night, everyone.
As I walk along this land, I wonder what I see. See my brother struggling to be free. As I walk along this land, I wonder what will be. Will I be forever yearning? Will my soul be free?
Crops are all
the Sacramento Valley to toil in the sun. Your wife and 7 children, they're working everyone. And what will you be given to your brown-eyed children of the sun?
Don't do me no good. Bracero Memorial Highway runs Soledad to Chula, through the fields where we worked and slept beneath the stars.
Big boss man, can you hear me when I call? Well, you ain't too big, you just tall, that's all.
As I walk this land, amazed at what I see my brothers struggling to be free. As I walk this land, cries equality. Is it just for privileged ones, but not for you and me?